All right, folks. So what we have here is the Retevis RA89. It's a dual band analog handheld ham radio. It operates on 2 meters and 70 centimeter bands. This is a pretty handy little radio, and I've been playing around with it a little bit, and I kind of like it a lot. It's pretty big. It's got a pretty good size, and it feels really good in the hand. And what we want to do today is we're going to take a look at the output signal quality of this radio. It's one of the first tests that I do when testing this type of radio, because if it's not spectrally pure or clean and it violates FCC rules, it's something I generally don't recommend or use. In this video, we're going to hook it up to an oscilloscope. We're going to look at the output waveform. We are going to connect it to a spectrum analyzer and test it for harmonics and spurious emissions. But I want to talk about it a little bit. This is a 10 watt, 5 watt, or 1 watt radio, depending upon the power settings that you have on there. I'm going to roll some pictures in real quick of the battery and inside. But it comes with a rather large, beefy battery. And if you take a look at the back of it, there's a little plug here that you can take out. It's not a captive plug, so this is probably going to get lost, and I don't like that. But I can charge this via USB-C, which is the hot new trend that people love. It has things like standard Chinese radios have, like it has a flashlight. It has the ability to listen to AM broadcast. You're probably not going to be able to see that, but just have to trust me that you can do that. And it comes with the standard Chinese radio menuing system. Has a push-to-talk button and a couple of programmable function buttons here. So that's all pretty handy, and let's go ahead and get this started. But before I do, I wanted to mention that I was contacted by Retevis, and they asked me if I would do a video review of this product, and I like doing video reviews, and I like Retevis. So they sent this to me free of charge in exchange for this video review. Now, if you're the type of person who gets triggered by sponsored YouTube videos, I'd suggest you go watch some cat videos. Okay, so here's our radio, and what we've done is we've used the antenna port to connect this over to our oscilloscope, which is a Rigel MSO 5074. And here is the display for the Rigel scope, and I have the radio set to low power, which should be 1 watt, and it is depicted with a little L on the screen, but you can't see that. So let's go ahead and let's key up and take a look at this. And when we look at this, this looks pretty good. We're set for a frequency of 146,520. And so what you can see here is we're off by about 10 kilohertz, but I don't think that's too big of a deal. And you see a really nice, clean sinusoidal wave depicted as the MF carrier that is coming out of the radio. And you'd be surprised at how bad some of these look sometimes. That one looks pretty good, and we're pretty happy with that. So what happens is that the FM modulation adheres itself to that carrier signal. So if that carrier signal is a mess, your frequency can get off. You can get some distortion in your signal and in an overall poor transmission. But that looked pretty good. Let me go ahead and switch this thing to medium power real quick. And now we are set to medium, which should be 5 watts. So let me go ahead and key up. And we are still getting a nice, pretty clean signal. And then our counter is sorting itself out. And once again, we are at 156,521. Let's do the same thing for high power and see what we see. Okay, now we are set for high power. And I'm going to go ahead and key up. And again, it looks pretty good, so we have no problems there. All right, let's get this thing connected to our spectrum analyzer, and I'll show you how we do that, and then we can do the purity test. Okay, we're set up for a test, and I just want to show a couple of things so folks understand what we're doing, and then you can choose to play along at home and test your radios out if you would like. So when we take a look at this, I have my Retevis radio, and the signal is coming out the antenna port and into a 40 dB attenuator rated for 10 watts. So this will attenuate the signal 40 dB. And then we have an additional attenuator, which is a 10 dB attenuator rated at 10 watts. So between the two of these, we're getting 50 dB of attenuation. We're connected with a very short jumper. This is an RG316 jumper, I believe, and that is going into our tiny SA Ultra into the import. And then I've got a USB connector connecting this up to my computer. We're going to use the computer software so you can follow along and actually see what's going on. I don't like zooming in on the screen because it isn't exactly the best viewing experience. So let me do that, and then I'll show you how we set up and we configure our Tiny SA to perform the test. So hold on 1 second while I get the software set up. Okay, so what you can see here is the display for the Tiny SA, and we're going to go ahead and configure this so we can do our test. So the first thing I want to do is I want to activate our menu, and then I'm going to pick the option for measure. When I do that, I have an option for harmonic, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick that, and it's going to ask me to input a frequency. So I'm going to go 146.520. Now you can pick any frequency that you want as long as your radio transmits on that frequency. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click the M for megahertz. And so what it's doing now is it's setting up our test. There's a couple of other things that we need to do. Now, in order for a test to pass, the fundamental emission needs to have any harmonics be below 40 dB lower than the fundamental. So we're going to use this yellow data table at the top. Right now it's only got one marker on there, but as we key up, you'll see more. The other thing is that any emissions need to be below 25 microvolts, and that comes out to be negative 16.02 dBm. So what we want to do is we want to go back into our menu. We want to go to display. Let me go in here, go display, and then I believe we can draw a line right here. So I pick draw a line, and I pick negative 16.02 times 1. And when it comes back on, you'll see at the negative 16 mark a blue line that goes across the screen. The next thing we need to do is we need to account for our 50 dB of attenuation. So we want to go to the top part of our menu, and then we want to hit level. And I don't think I hit level. Let me go back. I want to hit level. And then I can go down here and hit external gain. And then I'm going to pick negative 50. It's very important that you use the negative sign times 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to adjust, and you're going to see our line come down a little bit as it continues to adjust. Once it's fully adjusted, we're going to key up our radio. Our radio is set for low power, which should be 1 watt, and we are going to see what our output looks like on the spectrum analyzer. And right now we're keying up. We're going to give this a few seconds to kind of sort itself out. You can see the yellow data table at the top forming, and there's a mark for each one of the spurious emissions. So the one marked number 1 is our fundamental frequency, and we should see this be somewhere around 30 dBm. And it looks like it's settling down around 31.7 dBm. And then when we take a look, we have a marker at number 2, which is 146.8 megahertz away from our fundamental. Now, our data points are a little bit skewed here because there's only so many data points. The frequency is accurate on the radio. We saw that on the oscilloscope, and it is just a marker issue. It's nothing to panic or worry about. And that one is, number 2 is negative 52.8 dBc. So that's decibels in comparison to our fundamental, so it's clean. Marker number 4 is negative 51.6 dBc. So that's clean, and they're both below the blue line. So on low power, the Retevis gets a pass, which is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to set the radio for the medium power level. And now we're set to medium. And we're going to key up, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to give the Tiny SA a second or two to sort itself out. I wanted to mention for ham radios operating from 30 megahertz to 225 megahertz, I believe it's 225, it might be 220, but I think it's 225, that operate under 25 watts, you only have to test up to 220 megahertz, so we don't check the 70 centimeter band. And here you go on medium, which is 5 watts. 5 watts typically comes out at 37 dBm, give or take, and this one's reading 36, which is just fine with me. And you can see we have no spurious emissions coming through. Well done. Good job by Retevis. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to set our radio for high power. And we are set for high power, and then we're going to key up. And this should be around 40 dB. We're giving the Tiny SA a minute or two to sort itself out, and we'll come back once it's done. Okay, I believe we are done with the Tiny SA sorting itself out. So when we take a look at this, we are at 37.9 dBm, which is good. Everything's below the line, and we don't really have any harmonics or spurious emissions to speak of. So we're going to say that this radio goes ahead and gets a pass. All right, folks, and that's going to wrap up this test. I'm very happy to announce that the Retevis passed with flying colors and exceeded any requirements by the FCC. Well done, Retevis. If anybody has any questions, comments, suggestions, or recommendations, please post them below, and I'll do my best to respond. Thanks for watching. It's much appreciated.